Okay, so our first panel is restitution while on supervised release. The moderator will be Dawn Brooks, and she will be joined by the panelists Cassandra Owens, Chalana McFarland, and virtually Alina Feas, who unfortunately, because she's on probation, her judge denied her to come and be here with us. And I also want to thank our partner in this, Reform Alliance, who has helped. Who has helped bring us here and has partnered with us on this campaign, and also the NACDL, who is helping us think through the legislation that we want to propose in order to change these laws that impact people who are under surveillance with restitution.
I think my voice is loud enough. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. Those of us sitting here represent individuals who are currently on supervised release and dealing with restitution, which plays out differently in our lives. So I'm gonna go down the row and ask some questions, and hopefully you will get a better understanding of what we deal with every day in this process. I'm gonna start with Alina, who is on the screen, who could not join us today because I believe in this situation, she has the most unique story. So Alina, could you tell us why you're not with us today? Can she hear me?
She might be muted.
Okay. Alina, you're muted. Can you hear us? We can't hear you. Okay, technical difficulties. There's always something, right? So while they try to work on getting her unmuted, I'm going to start with Miss Cassandra. We introduced her as Owens, but I know her as Cian. She was actually my bunkie in Danbury. So let's start with Cassandra. Could you tell me a little bit about your restitution and how it impacts you daily?
So my restitution currently is $243,000. It may not sound like much in comparisons to what everyone's restitution is, but it affects me, I believe, just as much. And I'm going to share with you why. So because of this restitution amount, I have to work not almost 2 jobs. I have to work 2 full-time jobs to make sure that I pay that restitution. So the amount of $243,000 as per the probation office means that I have to pay them on a monthly basis $1,430. Without my second job that I work Friday night, Saturday, and all day Saturday, all day Sunday, I would not be able to afford that payment in addition to my living expenses. That weekend job, we all know how we appreciate our weekends, right? Well, I don't have that. I don't have the joy of being off on Saturday or Sundays. In fact, I have to work 13 hours on Saturday and 13 hours on Sunday. And my probation officer felt for me, like many of you may be feeling for me now. And she says, let me do something for you. Let me put a petition into the court and ask the judge if he can lower this. Many of you may say, that's so nice of her, that was a wonderful thing to do. As soon as she said that, I'll never forget where I was. I was in my kitchen in front of my sink, and I almost collapsed because all I could think about is my daughter Cassie. And Cassie, by the way, is probably listening. Mommy loves you, Cassie. Mwah. And I love you too, darling. Don't get jealous. And the reason why I thought about Cassie is because by her putting that petition in, that means I would have to stand before my judge. And before she said that, she told me she wanted to reduce me to the lowest department for federal supervision, to low intensity, but she said she couldn't because she deemed that the calculation in my restitution was off by $200. So she said, let's go to the judge. All I can think of was, if she brings me in front of the judge and she says that to the judge, what the judge is gonna be thinking is, this is a technical violation. She's supposed to be paying 10% of her income, and for the last 2 months, she was short by $200. I should violate her and put her in prison. And as strange as this may sound, this happens. I know it happens because I was incarcerated with someone who was sent back to prison because of a technical violation. And I'm blessed enough to work at Reform, who each and every day, they do reform work surrounding criminal justice reform based on probation, parole, and federal supervision. And I've spoken to individuals as a result of my work at Reform, and they have been reincarcerated based on technical violations. Do you guys see my pain now? So as much as she was trying to help me, she could have actually hurt me and taken me away from my daughter again. So to answer your question, Dawn, that's how it affects me. I'm literally living each and every day with 1 foot in prison and 1 foot out of prison because of $243,000. So it might as well be 240 million, right? Thank you.
Impact is unfortunately the same. Shayla, share with us some of your experience around being on supervised.
Well, my story is very similar in the pressure that you feel constantly. I was sentenced in 2005 to 30 years in federal prison for mortgage fraud. I was the closing attorney. And interestingly enough, the loan officers and the mortgage brokers who received 5 months and 21 months. And I went to trial to, and the whole time I'm thinking, they're gonna realize that I didn't knowingly involve myself, with committing fraud. And yes, I made mistakes. I absolutely did. Hindsight is 2020. I acknowledge that. I own that. But I didn't deserve a 30-year sentence. And what happened, for those of you that don't know about the federal system, is it's done according to a sentencing guidelines chart. And so they have your base offense level, which in my case was 0 to 24 months. And then you're enhanced according to different things like leadership, sophisticated means, and your dollar amount for your losses. And so I received almost 30 points in enhancements because of the dollar amount for these houses that ultimately, this is in 2005 now, and they called me the queen of mortgage fraud, and they sentenced me to 30 years. But when the market collapsed in 2007, and you had all these big banks that were responsible for these same mortgages that I was convicted under, no one went to jail. And I was originally sentenced to pay $11.7 million in restitution. And I began serving my sentence. Of course, I thought, I'm appealing this, the truth is gonna come out. I filed everything I could file, and I got denial after denial after denial. And ultimately, I ended up serving 16 years in federal prison. And on President Trump's last day in office, he commuted my sentence and allowed me to be out of prison. However, my restitution is still here. And during the entire time that I was in prison, even though I paid every month while I was there. And when you're in prison, they have something called the Financial Responsibility Program. And so it's a formula that they use. They look at all the money that comes into your account. And this is money family sends you to be able to buy shampoo, soap, sanitary napkins, to be able to call home. They take all of that. They don't care. They add it up and they say, we're putting this into this formula and this is how much you have to pay. The only way to get around that is if you go work at Unicor, which is Federal Prison Industries, in which case they take half of whatever you make for the month. So you're already only going to make between 12 cents. And if you've been there and you're what's considered premium pay, it's $1.25 an hour. And you have to work several years to get to that point. But they take your pay. And then if your family sends you money, in addition to your Unicor pay, they can look at that and say, oh, well, we might want some of this too. And so you're afraid to ask your family for money because it's, they're already taking care of your kids, they're helping, they've gone through a lot. But you got to pay this restitution. And then once you get out, then probation comes, which is where I am now under supervised release, and you meet with your probation officer. They have you fill out all these forms. Where are you working? And that's another issue, like who's gonna really hire you? I was an attorney before, but I'm disbarred. I can't practice anymore. And I've been gone for 16 years. So imagine the technology gap with me trying to get in. So I had to learn a lot about YouTube and a lot about Google to be able to even function. But they didn't care. They wanted me to get a job. And then they take a percentage of what you make. The first probation officer I had, Mr. Washington, he was phenomenal. He was very patient with me. But since then, I've had 6 others, and it's been 6 different personalities. I've actually had one that said he wanted to see my cable bill to make sure that I wasn't ordering premium channels when that money could go towards the restitution, which is $18 million. So if I, don't have, I don't pay the $6.99 for Hulu, that can go towards the, that debt. And I don't mean to be facetious or trivialize it, but these are the things that we have to deal with. They look at our bank accounts. You're not allowed to buy anything over $500 without permission. You're not allowed to travel without permission. It's your life is not your own. And for me, what's the hardest part is I gave you 16 years of my life, and I come out and you still want more. And I still have to pay this ever growing restitution, which, the interest keeps going up. So what I'm paying is not even covering the interest, not to mention the underlying principal. And this is a judgment that can go on for 20 years, and then they can renew it for another 20 years. And so what that means is that it's a judgment against me. So it's on my credit. So can't get a car, you can't buy a house. Everything has to be in my mama's name. It's sad. And for a grown woman, it's just very humbling because I want to come out and I want to stand on my own 2 feet and I want to do the right thing, but I can't do it with all of this on my back. I have a daughter that's in college. She needs help with tuition. And they don't care. I take care of my parents. My mother has dementia. My father has Alzheimer's. So when he looked at my cable bill and said, why do you have these channels? Because my parents like to look at TV. It provides them some solace. And he says, well, we're going to have to revisit this. I mean, what more do you want from me? And it's not just occurring to me, ladies. It's happening to all of us. And it's not that we're trying to not pay a debt that we owe. It's not that, but we've paid with blood, sweat, tears, with days from our lives, with missing graduations and prom and sports events and everything with our children. And yes, we hear you when you say you should have thought of that before you committed the crime. I get it, but there has to be justice and there has to be mercy and there has to be second chances, because that's what this country is supposed to be about. And it seems unfair that people who commit far more heinous crimes than filing some deeds at the courthouse for mortgage fraud can buy a home, can buy a car, and I'm being kept at the poverty level struggling. And it is so overwhelming sometimes. And I thank God that He gave us this group together, because these women, if nobody else gets what I'm going through on a daily basis, they get it. They know what it's like to go to your bank account. I can remember with my daughter, we were going to the beach one day when we lived in Florida, and I went to get $20 out so we could go to McDonald's, and the money was gone. They go into your bank account, they can take your money whenever they want to. So then you're afraid to put money into your account, but then you have to fill out these financial reports. Court don't want to get caught not revealing all the funds that you have, but then you stand the risk of them raising your restitution payment. So it's like you can't get ahead, because every dollar that you make to get ahead ends up having to go somewhere else. So it is truly the definition of what they call, I think, hustling backwards. It's just so hard and it's overwhelming.
Thank you, Shayla, for sharing that. Alina, can you hear me? Alina? Can you hear me? Okay, while we continue to work on those technical difficulties, I'm going to share a little bit about my experience. Similar to some of what they've shared, I have $236,000 in restitution, and I'm currently on supervised release. And all the stories that Shay just talked about how it hinders everything that you do, what you have to account for, etc. But in my case, my restitution is joint and several, which means the government recognizes that I didn't get all of the money, yet I'm still responsible for paying money that they know I did not receive. However, you can't tell me what has been paid towards restitution. If somebody were to call right now and ask what has been paid in this case, they could not tell you. We're not entitled to that information. So I'm held responsible for paying restitution, but you can't tell me what the other co-defendants have paid and how it has decreased the amount of money that I supposedly owe. And so for me, it's been an uphill battle that I have been fighting. I ended up in bankruptcy court because the corporation, which was quasi-government, filed for bankruptcy. And because the government didn't do what they were supposed to in posting a payment that was supposed to go towards them, they sued me in bankruptcy court. So now not only do I have a judgment against me in my criminal complaint, but I have a bankruptcy judgment for the same exact money, not any fault of my own. So now, as I'm trying to fight through this bankruptcy process, I asked my attorney, could you find out what has been paid joint and severally? Because bankruptcy court's records show that some of the money has been paid and it should be deducted from my account. They will not release that information. So I said to my probation officer, you are an officer of the court. While you are responsible to make sure that I do properly, you're also supposed to be responsible to make sure that what I'm paying is correct. Well, needless to say, that caused me a little bit of difficulty because it sounded as though I was questioning his authority. When indeed, what I was asking him to do is his job. If part of your job is to protect me, is to make sure I'm doing right, then you should be able to help me get this resolved. Not. As a matter of fact, I was then told that I could not be put on the lowest probation because of the restitution issue. So now I'm also being harmed because every time I leave my state, if I want to cross the border, I live in New Jersey. If I want to go to dinner in New York, I have to call somebody to say I'm going to New York. Yet I forfeited $33,000, which was actually my share before I went to Danbury prison. If that money had been turned over to the proper people, I would not be in bankruptcy court. If the money had been credited in my account, when you look at me, it would not look as though I have not paid any restitution. So I forfeited $33,000 before I left. I paid restitution while I was in Danbury. I continue to pay restitution now. If you pull up my account right now, it shows that I have paid zero. Zero. So I'm being penalized every day for something I have not done. And so when we start looking at the system that we know is broken, not only do I have to deal with all that they are talking about as a function of being on supervised release, but I now have the added burden of not even being calculated correctly, and it's impacting my everyday life. So I have grandchildren. If we decide to go to, as we did during the summer, Hershey Park, I have to call somebody to ask permission because my restitution shows as being unpaid. So when you say you did the crime, do the time, I understand that. I take responsibility for my mistake. I paid my dues. I went to prison. I pay my restitution. What is your responsibility to us? And I don't mean just the Justice Department. I mean the communities that we come home to. Where are you on the front lines in fighting for individuals like me who are trying to make an effort to show that we made a mistake and we would like to be forgiven and we would like to be accepted? Where are you in this fight? Where do you stand? How do you help us? Where's your voice? Don't just look at the faces. Don't feel sorry for us. We don't want you to feel empathy in that sense. We want you to understand that we acknowledge the mistakes we made and we're trying to make an effort, but we need your help because the system does not work. So if you don't get anything else out of today, when you look at our faces and our stories, I hope that they motivate you to do something different, to fight for us as we in turn not only fight for ourselves, but we fight for the brothers and sisters who are coming behind us. Because as Danbury women, as all of us sitting here, we all represent somebody that's either out here with us who are formerly incarcerated, or for some of us that are still inside from whence we've come. We sit here today on the shoulders of somebody who came before us, and we stand as the shoulders for somebody to come behind us. It's not just us. It's not just about the faces you see. It's about the thousands of people impacted by the justice system and how it does not work. Are there any questions? Alina, can you hear us? Alina?
Yes.
Alina, could you start with telling us why you're on our video cam versus in person with us today?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for allowing me with you today, even if I couldn't be in person. I was denied the my travel permit by the judge here in Southern District of Florida, very common. So that's the reason I couldn't travel to DC to be with you guys.
Alina, how does this everyday process of supervised release and restitution impact you?
Well, as all of us, we are carrying this heavy board with so many negative impacts in our life. As I explained in my case, this is a case that has been, it was a joint restitution or amount that we have to pay. It comes back 10 years ago, and I was sentenced to serve 135 months in prison, 3 years supervised release, and then a restitution that is, we know, is a life sentence. I have been trying hard. I have been trying to do my best, but nothing gets better. Restitution has dramatically affected my life in many negative ways. This is as a result of this case, the government seized half of our family's assets and destroy our middle class life that we, with so much sacrifice and work, well, we were able to achieve. My son have been suffering disorder, as well. And after serving many years in several prisons, I thought that the worst was over. Little did I know that the worst was yet to come. Financially, this restitution has hit me really hard, but nothing compared with what I was trying. What happened at the end when I was trying to work with my marriage. I was trying to save my marriage of almost 40 years. My husband helped me and support me uh, through this process all the years. But once I started the supervised release and the probation officers was asking his personal information to make him responsible for paying this, that was it. He told me, this is too much and I cannot continue, and this is over. And days later, he filed for divorce. So needless to say, I was devastated. I'm still, like I cannot move on because that was the only thing I was trying to save. And I was trying, um, to move on with my husband. And again, my family has been totally destroyed. My son moved away and I'm here, by myself and trying to move on, and having this restitution is really it's really a life sentence. And again, I was not sentenced to life in prison, and having this restitution is to be serving a life sentence. And in my opinion, I think that there should not be such punishment. At the bare minimum, restitution should not follow us for the rest of our life. There should be a hard limit, at least a cap or something in the time we have to pay, and being able to move on, being able to get back to life. As I say, we are. In my case, I'm not living a life. I'm just trying to survive, like, having nothing to move on. And it's really hard. And again, in impacting the family, impacting the everything that we have been trying to say after serving time in prison, and not being able to do that is another burden. It's really hard. Emotionally, has been killing me for the past years.
Alina, we unfortunately understand. I thank you for joining us, and know that even though you are not here in person, we are our sister's keeper.
I know I have been praying for this. This is amazing. Ladies, I have no words to express my gratitude, and to Topeka, to the organization, to all those things that you have been doing. I'm beyond blessed, and I really thank you for having me today, and to be part of this campaign. Thank you so much.